So I'll call this meeting to order. Glad to see everyone here. Thank you for joining us. So we will start with a roll call. So I guess if our staff can help us out with that.
All right, Chuck Watson. Chuck Watson.
That's me.
All right. Rick Fieldhouse.
Present.
Bob Woodruff.
Present.
Joy Hughes. Joy Hughes.
Yep, she's still there, but her audio is not working. Litz Noter is here. She's present. We can see her name.
Deborah Burkle.
I'm here.
Liam Decken.
Present.
And Robin Wheatley.
I'm here.
Okay. Well, looks like we are all here. We've got a quorum, so we can go ahead and get on the first order of business, which this month being a new year, we need to elect a chair and a vice chair. So how we do this is pretty straightforward Robert's rules kind of fashion, where we open for first the nomination of the chair, or we'll see. Yeah, I don't think it matters which order we nominate, as long as we nominate one then the other. So we nominate a position. You can nominate yourself. Then we close nominations, and then we vote on the position. And then we'll open for nominations for the other position, get all our names, and then close nominations. And once again, you can nominate yourself for a position if you feel so moved. So let's go ahead and, I guess, start the process with, I'll open the nominations for the position of chair of the Historic Preservation Commission.
Well, I nominate Member Fieldhouse for chair of the Historic Preservation Commission.
Okay. Oh, I did forget to mention that the person nominated needs to accept the nomination. And so I guess I'll accept the nomination. Are there any other nominations for the position of chair?
I'll second Mr. Fieldhouse there.
Okay. Thank you. Any other nominations for the position of chair? Okay. We'll give one last call. Any other nominations? All right. Well, then the nominations are closed. We'll need to ballot on the position of chair. We can do this verbally. So although, let's see, I guess all those in favor of Rick Fieldhouse serving as chair for the 2023 year, please make your, all those in favor. That's what I'm trying to say. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, I think I saw most of the squares light up, at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All those opposed? Okay, well, then I guess I'm chair for another year. That's the hard part out of the way. Now, the next hard part, we need to find a vice chair. That'd be someone to take over this role if I'm out. Other than that, there's not a whole lot to it. Any nominations for the position of vice chair? Oh, Robin, I see you are lit up like you're speaking, but I'm not hearing anything.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, who is the student? What, I nominate the student.
Oh, Liam?
Yes, Liam. Yes.
Okay.
So we have to do some protocols here. So Robin is the liaison from the council.
Okay.
So she actually can't make a nomination.
Oh, I did not know that.
But another member could do the same as what Robin had just indicated if they so chose.
All right.
I nominate Liam for vice chair.
Okay.
Well, yeah,
Liam, do
I
you-
accept it. Absolutely. Thank you.
Are there any other nominations for vice chair? I'll ask one more time. Are there any other nominations for the position of vice chair?
So, Mr. Chair, you do need a second.
Oh, I do need a second. Okay, I'm sorry.
Well, I'll second it.
Okay, thank you, Bob. I forgot that we needed to have a second on that. Thank you for reminding me of that protocol. It's been a while since I've had to do this, a whole year. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded then. So I guess I'll return to reopen the nominations. Is there any other nominations for the position of vice chair? Last call for nominations for the position of vice chair. Okay. Then nominations are closed. We'll move to balloting. All those in favor of Liam serving as vice chair of the Historic Preservation Commission, please say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Okay, I think that was unanimous. So, Liam, congratulations. You're vice chair of the Historic Preservation Commission.
Well,
It'll be great on college applications.
Yeah, it will look very, I was going to say, it may not feel like much, but it is something that is a feather in your cap.
Well, yeah, I mean, I wasn't expecting that. Well, thank you. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So I'll say if you really want to bone up on it, just take a look at any little source that runs through Robert's Rules of Order, and that's generally how meetings are run. Though I know I'm pretty sloppy at it. Okay, let's go ahead, and we have some minutes. Oh goodness, it's been a while since we've met. August 16th, 2022 was the last time we met, because I believe we had the meeting that was between then and now ended up getting canceled. So the minutes have been attached to the agenda. They run the second through fourth pages of our electronic packets. Hopefully everyone's had a time to read through those and go through those. Are there any questions, comments, additions, or deletions that need to be made to the minutes?
I don't think so. I move for the minutes to be accepted.
Okay, it's been moved for the minutes to be accepted. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, so Deb moved, Chuck seconded. So with that, all those in favor of accepting the minutes of the August 16th, 2023 meeting, please say aye.
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 I
Aye.
Okay, so the minutes have been accepted. Thank you very much. I believe I need to get downtown to sign those now. That's the one disadvantage of these remote meetings. I guess none of you want to be chair because you knew you'd have to make a trip to City Hall to sign minutes.
We love guests at City Hall.
Okay. Well, next, we've got a CLG program review.
Mr. Chair, first we
Yes,
have
sir.
any public comments.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that section of the agenda. So yes, thank you for catching me on that. we need to open up for public comments. Are there any public comments or members of the public who would like to address the commission?
There are none in the waiting room.
Okay,
Faye, can we move Clay over as a panelist so we can introduce him to the commission?
hey,
So, Mr. Chair, we have with us Clay Downing. He's our planning manager. So
Mhm.
this is his first Historic Preservation Commission meeting.
Pleased to meet you.
So we're trying to scale him up on all things community development. So I asked him to attend tonight so he could watch the meeting. And he's actually, when we get to the part on the CLG grant, I've transitioned that over to Clay. So he's running that. So, but we'll get to that part. But Clay, you want
Okay.
a few comments about yourself to the commission?
Sure. Well, thank you everyone for letting me introduce myself to all of you. I think it's fantastic that you're a part of this committee. I think our committees and commissions are a great part of what the city's up to and keeping people involved in how we make decisions and stay involved in things. And so I really applaud what all of you are doing. I've been working with the city of Newberg for now about 5 months or so, and relocated from Ventura County, California for this job. And so my wife and I just up here and still getting familiarized with the community, but everyone's been very friendly despite coming from California and welcoming us into town. So thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing what I can do to help what you all are doing.
And so,
Well-
Mr. Chair, here's the next opportunity is Bob should introduce himself to everybody, and then we'll go to Robin.
Yes, yes. Bob, if you want to.
Yeah, hello, everybody. My name is Bob Woodruff, and I'm excited to be a part of the Historic Preservation Commission. I've lived here in Newberg now since 2006, so it's been whatever the math is on that, but it's been a while now. So I'm glad to get involved. I live right downtown, actually about a block and a half from City Hall. So kind of in the historic center, and it's just something that's been an interest of mine for a long time. So I'm excited to be a part of this commission. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us, Bob. And I guess next we have Robin. Please introduce yourself.
Oh, hi, I'm Robin Wheatley. I'm a newly elected city councilor, and I nominated myself to be on this committee. I think it's important to preserve, Newberg. Well, I'm not too familiar with what you all do, so I'm interested in learning, but also I've lived here pretty much my whole life in this community. So yeah, just preserving it, or, whatever comes with that is fascinating to me. The history, and it's fascinating. Well, the architecture I think is beautiful. So
yeah, well, you'll find we don't have a lot of power to do things, but
I'm learning
we can really gently encourage people, and well, that'll kind of come out when you hear about the some of the projects and things that we do.
Yeah.
So, all right. We'll see. Was that all the introductions? Was there anyone else, any other guests that we need to?
Those were the new people, Mr.
Okay.
Chair.
I just want to make sure that, because there's enough tiles in the Brady Bunch window that I'm kind of losing track of who I've talked to so far. Okay. So then, all right. So we don't have any public, unfortunately, which means we have no public comments. So let's move on with the CLG program review. Let's hear what's going on with that. So, Doug, are you taking off with that?
I am taking that one, Mr. Chair. So I included in your packet. So back in August, I indicated that we'd be having a conversation with the State Historic Preservation Office out of Oregon State Parks. It's called Heritage Oregon. And so every 4 years, since we are certified local government, we have to go through a process of an interview about what we've done and kind of where we're going and so forth. So I continually talk with Robert and Curry down at the SHPO office on different things. So Robert and I went through the process this year. Previously, Curry at SHPO went through this with the city. This round it was with Robert. And so went through and we had a conversation for about an hour about what the commission is, what we're doing, actions, activities that you're involved in, and so forth. So I included all the written summary that was provided by SHPO, which is the State Historic Preservation Office. So the first one was dealing with just, the commission itself, kind of overall. And of course, we explained, we all went through COVID, so we've been doing things virtually, want to get back to a hybrid schedule. And we just have some conflicts with our technology because court occurs on Tuesdays. And so we're working to resolve that. So please bear with me as we try to figure that one all out. We talked about the 5-year work program that the commission had put together. Kind of the first focus area was coordination with the university on their work that they had done based on a grant that they had received. Of course, they rolled that project out, and so it's available up on the university's web. So thank you for doing that. We then also talked about the work to the historic program or possible designation in the downtown area. I'll get to that separately under that agenda item later this evening. We talked about coordination that you've identified with Taste Newberg for tourism to highlight the historic resources that we do have in the downtown from our visitors and guests that come from around the world into Yamhill County. And then we talked about facade restoration programs and so forth. And they always reminded, they have their diamonds in the rough. They have their particular programs. We've accessed that, or the community, I should say, has accessed it a couple of times. So the Second Street Church building, got to slow down, Doug. And then, of course, chapters utilize that as well. So they're able to get some state funding to make those particular facade improvements. SHPO did indicate that, and kind of a theme that you read through that document is that they're willing to come talk and do some trainings with the commission on particular topics when the timing is correct and right. We talked about historic properties and just the processes. And so I explained what the commission's role was. And so you typically look at things that are new designations of resources or new additions to resources. A lot of the work is actually the way the code was written is done by staff. So we haven't had a lot of applications for you to go through that quasi judicial review process, which we'll have to do some training again because we potentially have some projects that might be coming forward in the next 6 months to a year or so. So we got through that. We talked a little bit about the early settlement areas north and south of downtown, which are our residential areas. So from downtown up to the railroad tracks and from basically 3rd Street south down to about 9th Street. Again, SHPO said if the commission would like some training sometime in the future just to talk about how to do facade reviews and so forth, they'd be willing to come and do that. The records, we talked about records. And so, yes, we do keep track of everything. So we have minutes for all of your meetings. We have video now that we've been into the COVID situation. We keep and log all of our historic reviews, those that are done by staff, those that are done by the commission. So that information is all available. National Register process. So as a reminder, the last time we did anything like this was for the Cameo Theater, where we got the grant from the state, hired the consultant, went through that process, and with the property owner, Mr. Francis, we were successful in getting the Cameo listed on the National Register of Historic Places. We did talk a little bit about during the COVID process, it's been a little more difficult to find consultants firms have closed. It's just been a little bit more of a challenge as we move forward. We talked about public education and awareness. And again, during COVID, it was difficult to do outreach. Meetings were virtual, but as we're hopefully working towards this community engagement to get feedback and so forth on an historic district in the downtown, possibly in the future, there will be some public outreach. Grant management was the last kind of category, number 6 on their list. And, we manage our grants. And so it's about every 2 years, we have the opportunity to apply and receive, because we are a certified local government designation, to receive some grant funds. So that was why we spent that 1-year process of going through what's your work program, because sometimes when the grants open up, we didn't know exactly what we wanted to. And so we kind of raced around in the past. So now we have a kind of a clear path. And again, that path has been shared with the prior city council about what your priorities are. So overall, the evaluation said we meet the requirements of being a certified local government. So congratulations to you all. Any questions?
Well, would you mind explaining to the newer commission members, what does it mean for us to be a certified local government? What are the benefits?
Certified local government. So we've gone through the process, have adopted an historic program. So that deals with nominations to have a property or a site listed as a local resource, a Goal 5 resource. Gives the commission the authority to recommend to the council nominations, or if somebody wants to be delisted off that list. Gives the commission the authority to make decisions on expansions. And so we've had a couple past applications where an historic resource, they wanted to do an addition, and that had to come forward to the commission. They had to hold a public hearing, take public testimony, and then you rendered a decision on that. And that decision is appealable to the city council if someone objected, the property owner or a surrounding property owner. It also provides access to some federal dollars that are passed through to the state, to the Historic Preservation Office, and so that you can implement your work program, your 5-year work program. Probably the last piece of that CLG, it provides access to training. Excuse me. So there hasn't been anything recently, but once a year, SHPO tries to put on a kind of a statewide training program, and commission members can attend those. They're typically free of charge, but it helps you with your role because the commission was adopted by ordinance by the city council. It gave you certain authority to make decisions on certain historic activities. It gave staff the other authority to make decisions on certain activities. So by having this CLG designation, we've been successful in getting grant dollars for designation of the Cameo Theater. We did the sidewalk stamps and the horse rings and the mailboxes. We got grant money for that. We got grant money to do some additional inventory work in the downtown area. So it's come with some benefits, so we don't have to spend public dollars to do that. We get grant money that covers a lot of that. There's still a little bit of public dollars because there's a match requirement for the grants.
All right. Any questions for Doug about this? I want to make sure that our newer folks are feeling informed and you're not just stumbling in blind.
I think the other portion of that, Mr. Chair, was at your last meeting, the commission had asked about, your roles and responsibilities. And so I put in your packet directly out of the development code that identifies type 3 applications are the one that require public hearings. So designations, removal of designations, additions onto historic resources. And then it identifies the lesser activities that are classified as a type 1 review, and those are done by staff.
Yeah, I noticed that's what's starting on page 12 and on. Yeah, I hadn't seen that in a while, and I was kind of glad to get a chance to review it.
So, historically, the city has gone through the Goal 5 process and designated local historic resources. If you go to the city's website and go to engineering and go to GIS, you can open up the online version of our GIS layers, and you can click open the historic resources. So you can see that they're designated around town. Most of them are in the downtown area. There are a few outside of downtown. When you do see the university and it looks like the whole campus is designated a historic resource, that's not true. There's only 2 structures that are actually designated as resources, but so there's access for the public and the community at large to look and find out. We also have on our website, the inventory of all of the information so people can do research. There's inventory sheets on all of the designated sites.
Right.
A side question on that real quick. There's been discussions in the past about updating our website, like the inventory and whatnot. I'm guessing that that's still in the pipeline.
So as part of your work program, you've identified to update the historic resource inventory work. We're not there yet. There were some things that came first. And I think I've mentioned in prior meetings, there have been some conversations about just updating the city's website overall. It's a little bit of an older platform than what's available out there, but I do not know the status of where that's at right now.
Alrighty, thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments on this topic?
So can I,
Oh, of course.
okay, so I kind of read through the notes. So basically you guys decide what buildings are historical. Is that the main, you designate them? What's the main job of?
So in the Oregon's land use planning process, there's a goal 5, and historic resources fall under goal 5. So each community and county within the state of Oregon is required to go through a process, and it's a long process, and determine which resources should be designated as a local resource, which then goes on a statewide list.
Local resource.
Yeah, and so from those local resources, then there are regulations as a sub-district within our development code that regulates activities based on modifications that might occur to that historic site or that particular structure. So we have things that are maintenance that do not require any review. We have things where it's minor in nature that requires a type 1 and staff does that review. And then we have category for those if you're doing a new designation, removing or you're doing an addition or a major modification or alteration to an historic resource, then that goes to the commission for their review in a public hearing.
Okay, so it's mainly if it's historic resource and they need to do any work.
Mhm. A good example of this is if you remember a few years ago when Recipe had their fire.
Yes.
So in the aftermath of the fire, they decided we want to renovate this building. And because it was, especially the south side of the building was kind of several years worth of historic additions on the back of the original Victorian. So they wanted to essentially, kind of tear off this kind of mishmash of old additions and have something that was more functional for them, but also would provide like wheelchair access and a wheelchair ramp, so they wouldn't have to have something up the front steps and do a big modification there because they wanted to maintain the front facade. So in that, they that was a level of review that we needed to do. And so they presented the plan saying, here's what we want to do. And of course we approved them because it was wonderful plans. We felt that, yes, especially in the aftermath of the fire and the accommodations they're doing for ADA, it was really kind of a no-brainer for us to approve. So it's not really a odious process. I know there's a lot of fear, especially with property owners, that we're going to be telling people that, oh no, you can't put in that kind of window, or oh no, it's got to be the
Oh,
expensive reproduction trim.
Oh.
At least my goal is to avoid that. I would rather use a carrots rather than sticks to get people, to encourage people with historic preservation.
So,
I was going to say, in a couple of examples of minor modifications to a historic resource that were approved by staff is Chapters facade improvement, Ross Marino, the facade improvements that they did there. The Lyman House required review by the commission for that one. We have a couple of pending possible applications. Ruddick Wood would be a type 1. They wanted to address modifying some windows. We talked back in August about Minthorn Hall. So the university has talked about relocating that. That would be one that would require the commission to review that application to do. And it's important to note that when the city council adopted the ordinance, we do not charge an application fee for the historic resources if they're coming in for a type 1 or a type 3 review. There's a process to go through, but they do not have to pay for that process.
okay, I have another question.
Please.
So, okay, I was at the library and I was told that, well, I thought it would be a historical building, but I was told that because it had an addition, it was no longer historical. Or do you use the term, the local resource? Is that the term?
It's a designated, so at the library, the Carnegie portion of the library is a designated historic resource.
Okay.
The addition to the north of the Carnegie Library is not a designated historic resource. So I'm in conversations right now with Public Works because there's some dry rot around the windows that face Hancock Street.
Yeah, the doors.
And so I've been talking with them about removing those windows so they can fix the dry rot and then reinstalling the windows. If they do it that way, then it's a maintenance process. If they're doing any alterations or want to replace the windows, then it would require a type 1 historic review. So we've been having those conversations the last couple of days.
So it still is a local resource. It didn't lose that completely, just.
It's been designated for a good number of years. It's just the addition to the north of the Carnegie Library is not a designated resource.
Okay, so half of it is, half of it isn't. Okay.
Liam, do you have a point?
My question is, so we've talked about, I know the historic district, that's been in the works for a long time, and one of the main things was to include the library within the downtown historic district. Would that change its general classification there?
No.
Alrighty.
So in that, we've talked in the past, there's the kind of traditional process where you create a district, you have primary, secondary, and contributing resources. So the library could end up as a primary resource, like the post office and city hall and some other buildings. You could have some secondary resources. Again, there's a process we'd have to go through, so I don't want to predetermine it. Then you could have contributing that have some historic merit to the history in the downtown. And then you could have resources that don't have any designation at all. They're not primary, they're not secondary, and they're not contributing. Then the other model that we've talked about in the past is a displaced historic district, and it would be property specific. So there you look at historic structures that are in a time period. So when you use as an example, the Carnegie Library, the post office, and City Hall were all built in a very similar timeline of around 1912. And then you could look at other structures that might have been built, let's say 1920 to 1930. I mean, there's choices that have to be made. So there's a couple of different ways that we can look at if there was some kind of historic district in the downtown. There are two different models to be able to look at.
And like the separation between like the northern part of the library and the Carnegie part of the library, that like separation right there, would that remain, or like would it all be classified as primary?
Well, if under the traditional method, you would define it by a boundary, a geography of X number of acres within the downtown area. So you could have a situation, again, this is hypothetical, that the library could be a primary resource, and the addition to the north might end up as a contributing or non-contributing resource. Again, there's a lot of evaluation that has to occur on that.
Alrighty, thank you.
Okay. Good questions, good discussion. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Kind of educating ourselves on this process is ongoing. So if you have questions in the future, we can always return back to it. Every one of these meetings, I learn a little bit more about the process and some of the technical aspects. I'm glad Doug has them so well in hand.
Well, it just happens to be that, I wrote my master's on historic preservation. So
we appreciate you, Doug. Thank you. Okay, so if there's nothing further with the CLG program review, because we don't have any action that we need to take as far as anything to approve or ballot on.
no, it was just information piece. And again, the next round of that CLG review will occur in 4 years. And so
Okay.
the summer of 2026.
Okay, so it's good to know that we're good for another 4 years. All right, so then we have next on the agenda, I have, let's see, item number 7, a certified local government grant application. Can you tell us what's going on with that?
So we went out. The reason we did not have a November meeting is that we went out for a request for proposal, an RFP, and we got 0 responses to that. So I stepped back, and part of this process of going through the CLG review, I talked with the SHPO, with Robert at SHPO. And that's where we kind of talked through about it's a little bit of a challenge right now to find consultants and so forth. And so through those conversations, a list was generated of companies that are still in business. Not any recommendations, just these are practitioners, consultants in the field. I also happened to talk with the city of West Lynn, who's looking to do something similar to what Newberg is involved in. And they were looking to write for a grant to SHPO to get funds to be able to do that. And so I was able to share the scope of work that we put together for our grant. So in the planning world, we share information. So since we didn't find any consultants and we've had some staffing changes and Clay came on board, thank you very much, Clay. I've passed this project off to Clay. And so we're out for an RFP again. That closes on March 8th, if I remember right, Clay. And we shortened up the timeline of activities because we have to have this wrapped up in August of 2023. So rework the scope of work. Project cost is still the same. It's just, again, a shorter time frame to do the particular activities. And the primary part of this is it's not designating, it's getting property owner and business feedback about the merits of having or not having some type of an historic district in the downtown area. So this is kind of the community engagement step. as we've talked about before, there are multiple steps to get through. If there's a determination, a recommendation from this group that we go to the council to go to the next step to say, okay, now we got all this information. It appears, again, I'm doing a hypothetical, that the community be receptive of having a historic designation. Then it's finding the resources to go out and hire a consultant, which would be more than what we can get from grant funds from the state. So it would require some public dollars on the city's part to hire a consultant and actually go through that process and that inventory. As we shared before, is that the SHPO office has indicated that they would be willing, if it works into their schedule, to come up and give the commission a presentation about these two models, kind of the traditional standard method versus the displaced method. So with that, Clay is running that project forward. Hopefully we'll receive responses this time. I think we had 6 or 7 firms we made sure that we reached out to, as well as doing a notice in the Daily Journal of Commerce for it. If I'm hoping positively that we will get responses, then we'll go through a process to evaluate and score submitted proposals. And though on your agenda it says your next meeting is in May, you may have a meeting earlier than that, because in the scope of work is kind of an orientation between the commission and the consultant about the scope of work and how they would do that, and refining the timeline to get the body of work done by the end of August, because we're working on the federal fiscal year for the dollars, not the state fiscal year or the city's fiscal year. So that's kind of where we're at right now with our CLG grant.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions on this particular process for questions for Doug or Clay, I guess?
I'll ask just to make sure I understand.
Oh,
So
please do.
So we hire a consultant and they take an inventory of our historical homes, and then go ahead.
No, in this one, Robin, is the consultant would do survey work and stakeholder outreach to property owners and business owners within the downtown area, and have conversations with them and gather information about the pros and the cons and their sentiment about having an historic district within the downtown area. So there's no inventory work happening with this stage of it. If it was positive and the community was receptive to doing that, then the next step would be finding the financial resources, doing another RFP to hire a consultant who would then go through that evaluation process saying, here's all the inventory work we've already done. And that goes back to my earlier comment then of saying, okay, which of these resources are primary, which are secondary, which are contributing, which are non-contributing. But that's a lot of work in the future. Right now, we're just trying to gauge the temperature of the community, if they're receptive to the idea or not.
Yeah. Let me, maybe the perspective I have. Now, this is my own personal perspective and not necessarily shared by other members of the commission, but this is us going out and we're going to be asking business owners, property owners, hey, if we set up a historic district downtown, or we did this, these designations, what are you worried about? Do you think this is a great idea? Do you think this is a terrible idea? Do you have worries, concerns? Do you have things that you want to happen? So we're really getting some info here from, well, frankly, our property owners, our business owners, who are going to be the ones who are potentially most affected.
Sure.
And it's about if they respond back to us saying, oh no, we don't want anything to do with that, well, then I would really personally have a hard time forcing this kind of thing through. Or maybe we say, oh, we're finding that people have a not a good understanding of what the benefits of this could be. Okay, we need to do some outreach, get folks educated on what kind of, if we do a historic district, what might be some opportunities for grants or property tax deferment or other things, because there's reasons why people set these up. What are the positives? Maybe we need to educate folks, and we can avoid some pitfalls, so we're not ramming something down people's throats that they don't want. I want to get some buy-in.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So
what I was thinking, but you summed it up.
yeah, so it's really about making sure that our property owners and our business owners know that or are bought into this process, so that they're part of this process. So we're not just a bunch of people who like old homes, kind of telling people, oh yes, you need to preserve that, but carrot rather than the stick. That's my whole thing.
Well, right. What would be the benefits of doing it? Tourism?
Well, there is demonstrable evidence that historic preservation results in tourism. I mean, it's just there's studies that have been done that's very provable, and we do have some great tourism here, and that's something that we want to promote. Also, it promotes a sense of community, sense of place, but then there's some real benefits that people like the Cameo, when they got onto the National Historic Register, that suddenly opens them, now that they have that designation, that's not just bragging rights. They can take that and say, hey, we want to apply for some sort of grant from a public or private source. We're something on the National Historic Register, and we want to, I know one of the things that Brian Francis wants to do is like do some reupholstering some seats and restoring some seats to the historic, the way they used to be, and so he has opportunities to kind of use this as leverage in grant, and he can get some grants or some other things like that. Basically, honestly, some financial benefits to be. Now there are of course, you have to kind of follow some rules, but with these rules come the opportunity for some potential, I say potential financial benefits. Liam, I saw your hand up.
I think Deb's been
Oh,
trying to
I'm
speak
sorry,
now.
Deb.
That's okay. I'm just curious if when we have this first consultant and they are going out to get input, will the consultant be drawing upon other communities that have done this and show the benefits? So I guess I'm trying to find a way to compress the process by including as much information as possible during the engagement we have with the first consultant, so that when they go out and ask input, actually there's information presented first so that people understand what it is that we're asking them to input about. That's all I'm.
That's part, Deb, that's part of the process. It's it's education. So there's nothing about the city is through its commission is saying we're going to do this. It's as Rick had indicated, it's checking the temperature. What do people think? But in order for them to respond intelligently, they have to know what it means and what are the pros and what are the cons to be able to do that. And so that would be the responsibility of the developer through these stakeholder interviews, through survey work, to gain or gather up that type of information. So share and get responses.
And one of the things that I'd like to add is when the selection committee for the request for proposals gathers, we're going to be evaluating and ranking various proposals, and hopefully we get multiple as opposed to having the outcome that we had last time. But we'll be evaluating what we think the efficacy of is for this effort as it's proposed. So we'll be evaluating, hopefully as apples to apples as possible, on what approach they're suggesting and what we think is going to be the most beneficial for Newberg. So that's really what we'll be looking about. That's why we conduct an RFP like this and convene a small group of individuals to evaluate those and see which proposal is going to get us the most bang for the bucks that we have available.
Thanks, Clay. That's helpful. Thanks.
Yeah,
Thank
the
you, Clay.
other part of that is the model of the scope that we put together actually is modeled off the city of Dallas, which is the most recent community to go through this very similar process. And as I mentioned, the city of West Lynn reached out to us to get our version of a scope for consultant services. And so there's some synergy. And so we're not breaking new ground and so forth. We're trying to use models that have been workable for other communities of a similar size in Oregon.
Liam, did you have a comment?
Just a few things. Real quick for the historic district. Obviously, there's the historic value that comes with being a part of the historical district, but the benefits of tourism, just marketing in general are great. Also the grant opportunity. But also, if I recall, last time we talked about this, wasn't there some level of tax breaks involved in that? Because I remember that was another huge like benefit, but I could just be misremembering that. And that's part one of my question. I have a second question, but
Boy, yes, there are some programs for some. I think the technical term would be deferment, rather than a forgiveness or credit. But I know that there are some programs that can affect property taxes. So I'm afraid I'm not really up on all of them, because it turns out that once you have a designation, there is kind of the world opens up for some opportunities for you, and I don't know of all the opportunities. That's one of the reasons we bring in consultants.
yeah, and talking about the consultants, the second part of my question is, so the first time we kind of reached out to consultants, we didn't get any responses back. Now that we're in kind of round two of this, what have we kind of improved upon the process? How are we how have we improved upon our outreach to get consultants? I'd love for you to know.
So the first round, following a standard process, we went out for an RFP, put it in the Daily Journal of Commerce. Consulting firms monitor that regularly. This time we did that. Plus, we targeted based upon a list of consultants who do historic preservation work and directly made them aware that the RFP was out on the streets and where they could go to get that RFP. So that's the big difference between the two.
Yeah. We can't actively solicit someone, but we can let a group know that we are looking for consultants. It's kind of okay.
I guess I'm kind of worried that, the factors that made us not get a consultant the first time, I guess I'm kind of worried, are we just not offering enough for them?
Well,
And
we only
Yeah.
have so many dollars, Liam. And
Yeah,
so
I know there's nothing we can.
we can only get
about that.
we can only get so many dollars from the state. We have a
Mhm.
match amount, so there's a project. So then we have to write the scope to fit those dollar amounts, and so that's why there was conversations with the city of Dallas, who had gone through a process. And actually, our scope of work is a little bit different. Our project cost is higher than what Dallas did because we're in a little bit different market, because we're just outside of the Portland metro area. And so you have to kind of tweak and fine tune these RFPs. But again, where the city goes out and does an RFP this time, we made from a list of consultants that we prepared who work in this industry, we made them aware that the RFP was out there, not that they just happened, oh, I missed that. edition of the Daily Journal of Commerce, and I wasn't aware. We've let them know we do have an RFP out. You can go to the city's website, you can get the RFP, you can submit your material back by March 8th, and then we'll go through the review process.
Alrighty, so just greater awareness. That's our main thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for telling me that. And I mean, I know it's an obvious thing, but yeah, thank you for improving upon that. I know you guys are working really hard on this, so yeah, let's hope.
And I think coming out of the pandemic that there was a bit, a not insubstantial impact on this kind of work. So, well, any other comments or discussion on the grant application?
So it looks like Robin has her hand up.
Oh,
Mr.
I'm
Chair.
sorry, Robin. I don't see hands. I'm wondering if there's some place I need to be looking for hands. Okay, please, Robin, go ahead.
Okay, so Doug, maybe you can tell me, unless I missed it, how you guys got a grant, the process. You said you got it matched. So the city put in some money and you got some, or yeah, explain that.
Yes, so the commission asked to submit for a grant to the State Historic Preservation Office.
Okay.
When the solicitation came out as a certified local government, they told us what our cap could be to request for grant funds. We were under that cap, but all of their CLG grant programs require a local match. So in this one, and I don't have all the details because the file's sitting on my desk in my office, but the overall project cost was 16,000. Consultant costs was 6,000. There were some costs that were attributed to the commission. There were some internal costs for, some printing and so forth that were in that as well. But again, Robin, I don't have the file sitting in front
That's
of me.
okay. I don't need the exact amount, I guess just how that whole thing went down.
Yeah, most grants that the city receives in the planning world, in the historic preservation world, when we apply for state grants, most of them require some percentage of a local match.
Okay.
Those percentages can range by different programs, but they're typically around a 8% to a 15% local match.
Okay, so like the city paid 10,000 and the state gave us 10,000.
That would be a hypothetical. Yeah, that would
Yeah,
be like
yeah,
a 50-50. So to
50-50, okay.
So sometimes to make your grant application better, you might increase your local contribution amount in order to be successful in getting that grant. So let's say a program came out and it said, your local match is 8%. Then we have to look at it and say, oh, well, everybody else might be doing 8% as well. So what if we said our match was 10% instead? Well, then the state agency or agencies who are reviewing that might say, oh, the community is really interested in this and they're putting more skin in the game. And thus we will fund that.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And Doug, I'm trying to remember, isn't it typically your time, since you are a paid city staffer, is
a match.
Essentially the cost of your time is part of this match. So
yes, and the commission's time is part of the match.
Exactly, because we essentially, even though we are not paid, it counts as there's a certain volunteer hour rate.
Correct.
That our time is also part of this match. So in a way we can, I'm trying to think of a good way to put it that doesn't make it sound shady, but in the world of grant writing, we can kind of, even though we're not contributing physical dollars for our time for being here, it counts as dollars as far as matching for the state.
Correct.
So.
And we've done other programs where we've done grant applications. Bob's probably aware of this from some of his prior activities, where they're looking for a 10% match, and we write the entire grant and say, okay, we're going to contribute X number of staff hours at this particular rate towards that grant. So it's not hard money, it's not actual dollars, but it is staff time contribution. And we've been successful in that approach in the past as well on different grants.
So yeah, we get a lot of bang for our buck. I'm just trying to say that. So, all right. Any further questions? Now that I've gotten my little window at a point where I can see hands, I apologize about not seeing those before. Okay. Well then, I guess we will move on to the next agenda item, which is the Oregon Ethics Commission.
Yes, so in your packet, the city recorder requested that I make sure that I shared with you. You received a letter from Sue Ryan, our city recorder. And so your statement of economic interest is coming up. So it'll be open March 15th to April 15th. And you need to do it because you do want to get the letter from the Oregon Government Ethics Commission saying you did not fill out your statement of economic interest, and therefore they have the ability to fine you. So this is a letter that Sue puts out every year. So members who've been on the commission have gone through this process. On the second page of that, there are some trainings. So if you want to take a training to understand how to fill out the forms, the next training that's coming up is on March 2nd, then there's March 8th and March 16th and so forth. We cannot help you fill out, it's all done electronically. We cannot help you do that, city staff, you have to do it yourself. But Sue always indicates if you have issues with technology, because sometimes if you try to do it on an iPad, it doesn't work very well. If you're trying to do it off your smartphone, there is the opportunity to utilize a city computer to be able for you to put all your information in and then get that submitted. But again, we cannot help you fill out any of the forms.
Yeah. I'll just say from my personal experience, was a kind of, yes, it takes a little bit of time to set it up the first time, but every year after that, you just simply make any changes, additions, corrections, deletions. And if you don't have any, it's literally less than a 5-minute process. So the only hard part is waiting for that window of time for the survey to open. One time I forgot about that window of time, and I got that letter saying, hey, we might fine you $10, I think it was $10 a day, unless you can give us a good reason why you didn't do this. And so I wrote them a nice apologetic letter and told them how dumb and forgetful I am. And they said, okay, we'll let you go this once. So, but I still had to do it, of course. Yeah. I just didn't get the fine.
So think of it this way, is that the city council, city manager, the judge, the planning commission, and the historic commission are all required to do the statement of economic interest filings. So you're not alone.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah,
it's because you are a decision maker. So earlier we were talking about the type 3. That's why you're not just advisory like the Affordable Housing Commission. You do have the ability to make decisions. So that puts you in the category that you have to fill out these forms.
Yeah. And it's like I said, it's the first time through might take you. Well, if you had some very complex, I'll say, if you have some very complex finances going on where you are doing business with people that you know are benefiting or potentially benefiting from your work, which on this commission is be a pretty select group of people. It's really not that difficult to set up. It's just remembering to do it. At least that was my problem. All right. Any questions on that discussion before we move forward? Okay, I'm not seeing anything. I guess we can move on to talking about our next meeting. unless sooner convened, we're scheduled to meet on May 23rd.
That is correct, Mr. Chair. So,
And I assume
Yes.
we'll be notified if we need to meet sooner.
yes, you will.
Yep, yep. Is there any further business to come before the commission? Oh, Liam, yes.
So I know it's been a little while. Give me a moment. Sorry, there's just music in the background. I'm so sorry. Yeah, so we've talked about meeting in person before,
yeah,
and I know
yeah.
that's been delayed because the area that we're supposed to meet at doesn't follow certain regulations. So I guess when is that? I guess where is that in the works, or is it just going to be, this is how it's going to be
Yeah.
for the next while?
Excellent question. Yes, I know that in my work with the state, we're all talking about how with the emergency, the COVID emergency period ending, and how different state programs are going back to normal as of 3 years ago normal. Is there any chance for in-person meetings in the near future this year?
I'm working on it. We have to have a space and we have to have a schedule that works.
Yeah.
So the facility that we have that allows the hybrid meetings currently is the public safety building in the Denise Bacon Community Room.
Oh, that's right. It wasn't necessarily the COVID restrictions. It was the fact that we were having to run the hybrid
Right.
meetings was why we couldn't do it in the city hall
Right.
conference room. Oh, that's right. Okay.
So
Okay.
currently we have City Council and Planning Commission who are doing the hybrid. I have
Mhm.
Traffic Safety Commission is doing hybrid because it works in that. The issue with this commission and my Affordable Housing Commission, your meetings are on Tuesdays, which is the same
Which
day
is
as
the
court.
day is court. Oh, that's right. I keep forgetting. You've explained this before, and I keep forgetting.
So I'm trying to find a way. So Liam, yes, we're trying to get back to hybrid meetings.
Absolutely, and I understand that. Thank you for
Yeah.
reinforming us. Thank
I'm-
you.
Okay. Well, with that out of the way, unless there's any questions or discussions on our next meeting being May 23rd, I can move on to our final agenda item, which is adjournment. So once again, I'll say, is there any other business that needs to be brought to our attention? And hearing none, I'll declare this meeting to be adjourned. Thank you all for coming. It's really good to see. I think this is the most we've had in one of these in quite some time. I'm glad to see some new names. Pleased to meet you, Clay and Robin. Bob, good to see you again. It's been a long time since I know we've talked in the phone recently, but it's been a long time since I've actually seen you in the flesh or in the picture. So, but thank you all for coming. I guess you're free to go.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Good night.
Well, have a good night.
See you on May 23rd.
Thanks, everybody.